camera where it needs to be. And there we are. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about today the idea of compromise. So a lot of times people think that they have to compromise in a relationship. And you've probably heard that a lot before, that compromising is what you need to do. And it is absolutely not what you should be doing. And this is all because there was a conversation with my one girlfriend, and she was talking about she feels like she can't be her true self, and that she needs to, you know what, why do I wear these shirts? Why do I wear shirts that I have to fiddle with? You know why? Because they're gorgeous and I love them. So she was talking about how she has to compromise her true self and really who she is. And she feels like if she can't be her authentic self, that no one will accept her, okay? So when I heard that, it really jarred me because she's this really incredible, vibrant person, and she is really talented, and it really shocked me. So when I heard, you know, when you hear someone that you care about can't be their true self, or they feel like they can't be their true self, it really makes you think, right? And then I started thinking about, am I my true self? And yeah, I am. And then I started thinking about, and I asked her, well, why can't you be your true self? And she said, well, I feel like I have to compromise, you know, for family or to fit in and so forth. Now, we all know what that's like when we went through middle school, but for a lot of us, and I'm not saying that's immature thinking, I'm saying that in middle school, that's a traditional time where people are trying to fit in and fit into cliques and popularity and be accepted and be affirmed, because that's when children are moving more away from their family, where they're definitely or almost always affirmed and accepted, and moving away and developing autonomy. So as they're developing autonomy, they're a little unsure, and that's where that comes from. But what if you're an adult and you're feeling like you can't get it together? What if you're an adult and you feel like who you are is not appropriate and not accepted to someone else? Number one, that's cruddy. And number two, it's so self-limiting, okay? So let's talk about what that really is about and why I'm saying don't compromise in relationships. So if you're right now in a marriage, I'm telling you, don't compromise. You disagree, do not compromise. Compromising is all about concessions. And concessions are really places of, you really are giving something up of value, okay? So when you compromise, people say, let's compromise, it's a win-win. It's not a win-win, it's a lose-lose. Because a compromise is both people in some way are not getting their needs met, getting what they need, desire, want, whatever you want to call it, whatever the situation is, two people are now not getting something to get something, okay? This is also why I always say to people, don't barter when you're in business. As soon as you barter, you're actually compromising. You're agreeing to not pay each other. And one of you might be feeling, if one of you feels really great about it, that's awesome. But understand that the other person may not be feeling that great. They might be feeling that they're not getting what something is worth. So when you, and I know that people will say that bartering is good sometimes, and it can be sometimes, if it's done differently. Don't think of it as a compromise, okay? So in a relationship, I never ever want you to compromise. And I have been married 20 years, and I'm telling you, compromising is not the way to get anything to a place of happiness, okay? Collaboration is very different than compromise. Compromise is saying, and I'm going to give an example of going out for a cup of coffee, okay? Compromise is saying, do you want to meet at 11 or at 1 for a cup of coffee? And the other person says, well, I can't do 11 or 1. Let's compromise and do noon. Now, if noon's really not working for you and 11 or 1 is, you might say, well, how about 12:30? And then they're thinking, well, that's a little bit of a stretch. Okay, 12:30. But really what's happening there is that somebody is giving a little bit more. And there's going to be a little bit more of an apprehension or a feeling of not having equality. The minute that we don't feel that we have equality, we feel like we're not as free. The more we don't feel as free, we feel like we're not of value. So if you have a relationship that is built upon constant compromise, you're going to start to feel like you are giving too much of yourself, sacrificing. And even little compromises are going to start to feel very big, okay? Because it's actually cutting you at your self-value. Collaborations are very different. So I told her this morning, because she was saying, okay, because my response was, I just plow through it. I just do what I do, and whoever doesn't like it, get out of my way. And I know that sounds harsh, but hear me out, okay? So, because I wasn't brought up with compromise, I was brought up with collaboration, and so I don't know what it really feels like to be in a compromise situation. So when you are in a relationship, let's look at a compromise with that cup of coffee, and I can show you with that example how it can feel so different, okay? So let's just say you both agreed to 12:30 for the cup of coffee, but the other person could not do 1 o'clock, so they don't have as much time. So now you are feeling like the 2 times that you gave, and you gave options, weren't good enough, but 12:30 is, but you're excited to meet your friend, whatever, okay? And you're having the cup of coffee, but they're looking at their clock, the clock, their watch, or their phone. And usually in this day and age, it's the phone. And as they're looking at the phone, they might get caught up on Facebook, or they might get a notification and they're becoming distracted, or they just don't have time. Time is the commodity that we just can't create, okay? We can create solar panels, we can create a lot of different things, but we can't create time, okay? So when someone gives you their time, that's big, okay? So you're feeling now that you're not getting the time that you deserve, and maybe that it was a wasted trip. And they're feeling rushed, and maybe they're even late to their next appointment or a friend, and they're feeling put off. Like now you've become maybe an obligation, and you're feeling like you're just an option, okay? Even though you both on the surface are like, yay, we're having coffee and having fun laughing, okay? Now let's take it a whole different way. The person says, let's have coffee. You say, I can do 11 or I can do 1. And they say, nope, that doesn't work. How about 12:30? Let's compromise, or 12. And you feel like that could potentially work, right? Well, here's what a collaboration would look like. A collaboration would look like, it looks like this day isn't going to work because I can do 11 and I can do 1. You can't do those 2 times. This day isn't going to work. And I really, ultimately, the idea of getting coffee with you is not about the coffee. I can have coffee anytime, but it's about really spending some time with you because I care about you. And then the person is like, wow, okay. So it's not just like, oh, I can't do it, I'm being hard to deal with. It's like coming from a different place now. So now the person is saying, oh, okay, like you really care about me, I'm of value in their head. And at that point, it is now, well, maybe not tomorrow then. Let's try a different time. And that would work for both of us, because ultimately in a collaboration, you're looking at what's underneath the surface. So in that collaboration, it's really about how can we spend some time together to really connect. And so when you look at what are some other days and times, that is a collaboration. You're both doing it equally. No one's losing anything at all. You're just moving a time frame, a new agreed upon time frame, and it's not a compromise. A compromise is moving the time around and trying to fit it in and so forth. Now, sometimes in life, when you think that it's a compromise, so say we only have tomorrow to have this coffee, there's no other day in the next 2 months that we could possibly do this, it has to be tomorrow. Then you still collaborate. You look at what can we do. Maybe meeting for coffee isn't the answer. Maybe just being on the telephone, maybe doing an iPhone FaceTime. What can we do that would be more a collaboration so that we don't feel like we're missing out on anything, and we are celebrating, and there's no losing in it. There's no sacrificing at all. So that's really important. So in a relationship, you're thinking like, okay, well, that's just coffee, okay? But in a relationship, and I've got conflicts in relationships, okay? In a relationship, it's a little bit different, but not. So in a relationship, what you would do is it would be like just think of something that's really big that's not your issue, because it's really hard when you're thinking about your issue because you're in the mindset of not necessarily winning, but you feel like getting what you want will make you happy. So for instance, let's take something really big. Let's take it as your husband was cheating on you. And you're saying, in order for me to feel comfortable, this person was at your job, you need to either leave your job or she needs to get out of there. That's it. Okay? So he might say, well, I don't want to leave my job, but I will agree to not doing any after work activities because she may be there. Okay? So do you see where this can start to be a compromise where no one's really happy? Because he is now missing out on after work activities, and you might be saying right now, good, he should, but he's missing out on some self-enrichment that might be really positive for him and for you as a couple, and you're still not going to feel like you can trust him. So a collaboration might be instead going beyond that and seeking out a therapist, or both of you agreeing to read one particular book and have discussions on it and move past the betrayal so that there's not a trust issue, so that you can actually look at him at work and go, okay, there was a betrayal, things were happening, and we're working on collaborating to healing. So I'm not saying now I just blew through that. It's a longer process. There's tears involved when it's revolving around betrayal, but you get the idea of how ultimatums and so forth, and I'm just going to do this to make her happy in the moment, all of those types of things are not actually going to help long term. In the moment they do, because you feel like you've won, you know? You feel like if you could just get him to not be at work as much, you're winning a little bit and you're feeling more secure, and he is feeling like, okay, fine, I'm just not going to be, you know, in these activities that maybe I like, or join committees at work. And he's feeling like, okay, well, as long as I do this, she'll be happy. I'm fixing it. But then ultimately, you're both going to not only have resentments, but the ultimate issue of trust and whatever led to the affair may still be present. So it's not really fixing anything. You're just in a lose-lose situation with little temporary band-aids over top. So collaborating and getting to the place of feeling more in tune with your comfort level of what you need, your true desires, whether it's with your husband, whether it's with friendships, parents, whatever, is really important. I'm going to tell you that if you've had a situation where, and I say this phrase a lot, if you've had a situation where you have been in dysfunction, high dysfunction growing up, alcoholism, addiction in any way, shape, or form, you're going to automatically think that compromise is a way of life, okay? Because you learned early on to either keep secrets, make excuses for people. Every time you make an excuse for someone, that's a form of compromise of you. So if someone is kind of lazy and they're always on a new job or between jobs, or they're always seem to have financial issues, and the financial issues don't mean that they're lazy, but they're having issues that they are creating, is my point. If you okay them all of the time and go, well, he had a hard time at work, or he didn't like this or that, or he didn't like his boss, or his boss was treating him unfairly, and you keep making excuses for the person, you're compromising yourself, okay? So collaborating would be, you know, I chose this person and I have a choice right now. Do I stay with somebody like this that I need to make excuses for, or do I think more of myself and find someone who really can be responsible and functional? And so you need to start thinking about that too. Are you making excuses for people and lowering yourself? Because compromise is a lot about settling. So if you're sacrificing, you're settling. I see women do this all of the time in relationships. So anyway, I've made this go a little bit longer. Usually I try to keep things at 4 minutes. This is 14 minutes. So I apologize. I hope it's helped. And I want you to stop compromising and start collaborating.